Suzuki Alstare Extreme Racing was developed by Criterion Software and released for the Dreamcast back in 1999. It features Suzuki motorcycles and fantasy environments. Sadly, there's nothing actually extreme about this game. Suzuki Alstare Extreme Racing starts off simple enough. Select your Team Alstare Suzuki racing suit and compete in a 3-race championship. If, after the series, you have the points lead, the next championship unlocks. The actual racing is simply okay. It took me a while to get a feel for racing a bike, as games featuring 4 wheels are more my style. Still, after the initial learning curve, I found the actual steering simply okay. Occasionally, I felt at a high speed the controls were too sensitive, and I would crash into roadside obstacles. I felt I had to constantly nudge the analog stick to make slight movements at speed. In better games, the steering speed is reduced the faster you are moving. After memorizing a course, this isn't a deal breaker, but it still feels a bit sloppy and never quite good enough. The courses themselves are more of the arcade variety and not actually sanctioned racetracks. This fits the controls well, as this is far from a simulation. The courses range from snowy mountaintops to rolling hills, the beach, and even New York City. Unfortunately, none of them are really that great. There's nothing technically wrong with them, they all just feel stale, they lack soul, and are completely forgettable. On the plus side, the tracks look nice. For $19.99, the texture work in Suzuki Alstare Extreme Racing is surprisingly sharp, and everything has a very crisp look to it. I actually really like the graphical style of racing games from this generation, before the overuse of motion blur and other effects came in and ruined everything. The soundtrack in Suzuki Alstare Extreme Racing is your standard trance house techno fare, made popular by the Wipeout series of games. This works well on the New York track, as this takes place at night and has an industrial feel to it. Everywhere else, it honestly feels out of place. My subwoofer was happy, however. So, after completing the first set of tracks, a new championship unlocks and the process repeats itself. Occasionally, a new variation of a bike will be unlocked or a new bike altogether. The bikes all feel pretty much the same, so you never really feel a great sense of accomplishment for progressing, as the reward is very little. As you progress through the championships, more and more tracks are added to each, so at the beginning of the game, there are 3 races, but the 6th championship has 6 races. However, even the environments repeat, with the same tracks and themes occurring over and over, which again makes progression a decidedly unsatisfactory experience. My final complaint is the collision detection. There seems to be an attempt at real tire modeling here, where the tire model reacts with the road and the environment like a real-life tire would react. However, it's unpredictable, and I occasionally lost control of my bike when I thought I would be fine. There is nothing worse than leading the first 2 laps of a race, only to have a minor hiccup toss you off your bike and ruin your race. Like many arcade-style games, you can't dominate a race. Whether you are doing everything perfect or just good enough, the AI is never far behind. Everything isn't all bland, however. The game occasionally gives you a great sense of speed, and the frame rate has no problems keeping up. But honestly, that's about it. Oddly enough, the next game Criterion Software would create was the first entry into the immensely successful Burnout series. So it seems after developing this game, they figured out what makes a racing game fun. And that is my biggest problem with Suzuki Alstare Extreme Racing. It features an extreme title, fast bikes, and fantasy courses to drive on, but never delivers any satisfying racing or any real sense of joy. Overall, the game is a very mediocre experience. It excels at nothing. On the flip side, the flaws don't prevent the game from being unplayable. Sadly, it's just not that fun to play. 2 out of 5.